Hello, my name is Hayden Pfefferman, and I'm here to talk to you about military research and the impact it has on society. Firstly, before we begin this slideshow, I just want to talk about how military research can be numerous things. Anything that's federally government, anything that comes from a military laboratory with military scientists, or anything that arose during a conflict that the U.S. military was in. When I say that, I mean something that, hey, we need this to do a certain job. And then once that job was fulfilled or the conflict ended, there are numerous other purposes for that invention. So firstly, let's just go over a little bit of overview. First, I want to talk about previous things that military has discovered or military research has discovered. Then I kind of want to talk about what we can foresee in the future of as far as projects being funded, things that are in the works or coming out into the civilian sector. And then lastly, I just want to touch on the impact that military research has on society, other than the inventions that it gives. And then we'll all wrap it up with a conclusion. So, just like that, let's go over some learning objectives though, for the big takeaway of this presentation. Firstly, I want you to know the discoveries due to military research. I'm only going to go over 3, but hopefully you can begin to see that military research is far-reaching in our society. Then, I want you to learn about some of the current projects that we have to look forward to. And finally, like I said, the impact that military research has other than just the inventions that it brings our society. So firstly, let's go over GPS. GPS is actually something that came from military research and actually began in the space race as we began to launch things up in response to Sputnik 1 and the Russians. Now GPS has developed into something completely different than what it started out as. It's a compilation of 24 satellites with 7 spares, all surfacing around 6 different spheres of rotation. And most people actually don't know that the military has its own GPS system that is encrypted and we cannot use, but it works off of the same satellites just like the rest of us, only has a little bit more precision. And then our GPS will tell you where to go and how to get there, and I know that I couldn't live without it. Next we have microwaves. Microwaves came about during World War II as we began to discover that the radios that the guys had were emitting microwaves. Were emitting microwaves and actually getting burns from it. And then we were able to find out that microwaves radiate heat. With that, we were able to turn it into the convection oven that we know and love today. I like this one just because it's an example of how something that was bad was able to be repurposed and turned into something good, useful that all of us use today. I mean, like Thomas Edison said, he may have learned 100 ways not to build a light bulb. This was one of the ways not to use a radio, but hey, turned into something very useful. Lastly, we have the Jeeps. Most people don't actually know that the Jeeps were founded because of the military. They came around during World War II when we needed something to help us in the Pacific, especially with the rough terrain that they were encountering. People found that the transport vehicles that they were using were having troubles getting stuck, flipping over, and just countless other things, and were too heavy and sinking into the soil. Thus, the Jeep was born. It was lightweight, versatile, and if it flipped over, it could be reflipped. They're easy to make and mostly cheap to make. And personally, just being a Jeep fan, I think this is one of the coolest things of how something that was used for a certain thing found its way into the civilian sector once its purpose in the military was over with. So now just kind of looking ahead, we have so many things to look forward to. And we have so many great companies like DARPA, NAVSEA, and other independent companies that are being federally funded to go out and do research to find a product to do X or a product to do Y. Or even just with the funding they have, having little side projects that they're not even tasked to do, but find interest in. So firstly, we have the artificial spleen. I think this is really cool because there are a lot of people that are losing their lives due to casualties of organs that they cannot have or that a transport donor is just not around. With an artificial spleen, people that are IED victims may have a fighting chance to live if their spleen is injured and there aren't any organ donors around. Next, we have a space junk scavenger. I find this one to be pretty cool because I just, in my mind, I envision a robot going up to old satellites that are not in use anymore and just kind of fidgeting something totally out of sci-fi and then coming back to Earth. I mainly think of Star Wars, but that's just me. But this is actually really useful because I'm sure most of you have heard space junk has become a huge problem, especially as we begin to launch more and more satellites that once they do their purpose, we can't go back up and bring them back in. So they just start orbiting, and next thing you know it, we're in the next planet with rings, but instead of rocks floating around, it's satellites. So with this, they'll be able to go get precious metals, precious other valuable electronics off of old satellites and be able to repurpose them and reuse them. Kind of like the whole reduce, reuse, recycle triangle. And lastly, the last one I want to talk about that is in the works is a universal translator. Personally, being a military child, I know the pains of not knowing the language of those around you, and then also not having the people around you know your language. It can be very frustrating at times, especially when you try to order food. But I think that a universal translator probably won't make it into the everyday life so soon. Instead, we'll probably see this in areas like of the UN, where multitudes of people are coming together in a huge conference and speaking a multitude of languages. Right now, they all bring their own personal translators that could always interpret something wrong, have misinterpretation, or just not know a certain dialect. With the universal translator, that is hopefully to be erased, to where everyone's hearing what the other person is saying, whether it's in Mandarin, English, Arabic, or French. Whatever language, it'll be able to take it in, translate it, and much like Google Translate, spit back out what the other person is saying. So this is just something that I'm really looking forward to. Hopefully it can make it into something that will work on our iPhones or any other mobile device. Next, I want to just talk about the impact that the military research and its funding has on our society, other than the inventions that it pumps out. Here, I have a pie chart of the total federal spending budget for the 2015 fiscal year. And I'm not sure if you can make it out, but over here, almost over a quarter goes to the military, and then even more of that goes into military research. Thus, we're pouring in trillions of dollars into the societies around the research, into companies. We're putting it into the economy by buying resources, testing resources, and using resources. But we're also employing people. That's one of the major things. Military research is a huge source of employment for so many people. Finally, just kind of wrap it all up, I want to go over a conclusion. So, I hope that you see that military research in the past has shaped the world we know today, from GPS, Jeeps, microwaves, and any other everyday device that you may not think came from military research. Fun fact, duct tape is actually another thing that came from military research. Also, military research is creating a whole new world, from artificial organs, cleaning up space junk, a universal translator. Who knows what could be in the works that we just have no idea about, but it may serve its purpose in the military and then be kicked out into the civilian sector for us to use soon. Also, like I said, it employs people. I think that's one of the biggest things. Everyone's talking about employment, and many people forget that military research is a huge source of employment because it takes so many people, takes so many different types of brains, and takes so many skill sets to accomplish the jobs, from research and development to building it and putting out a product. And lastly, I just wanted to say with all this, it's so vital. It provides so many things for us, provides so many resources for us, and resources for other people. As well, as I said, employment. I just can't stress that enough. With such a big budget, it employs and keeps so many people in the workforce. With that said, I just want to kind of wrap it up, and if you have any questions, I'll be free to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.